And he talks about the fact that the idea of asking to acquire Pixar, which at the time was a pretty big competitor to Disney's animation segment, that he thought that that was crazy. Well, hello and welcome. Today we have an installment of our book review series where you'll learn 7 impactful lessons from some of the world's greatest books. Today we are taking a look at Bob Iger's The Ride of a Lifetime. Bob Iger spent right around 15 years as the CEO of the Walt Disney Company. And at the time of recording this video, after almost a year of retirement, the company actually asked him to come back and be the CEO again. During his first run as CEO, he led Disney through the acquisitions of Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars. The list goes on of accomplishments that he achieved. Lesson number 1 is to clearly identify your top 3 goals. Whether you are a new leader coming into an organization, whether you are starting a new project or initiative for the company you work for or for your own business, Bob teaches to clearly set and communicate your 3 top objectives. This clearly sets the direction of the initiative, and it also gives something that your team, the people that you'll be working with, can all rally together behind. A lot of times at work, you may find it difficult to understand what the overall goal is of the tasks that have been assigned to you, and you're not really sure of what you're working toward. That makes it really difficult to stay motivated, to stay inspired. But if you have a clear sense of direction, you know what the end goal is, and you know exactly what the team as a whole is trying to get done, that makes it much easier to show up every day and to take care of that day's necessary tasks because you know what the dominoes falling are ultimately leading toward. Lesson number 2 is the importance of empathy in deal making. So Bob Iger was obviously involved in a lot of very large deals, a lot of very large acquisitions of some really, really massive companies. And he talks about it in particular when he's discussing the deal, for example, with Star Wars from Lucasfilms. He talks about having a good understanding of where the other side is coming from and just how important certain things might be to that other side. It parallels a lot with the book review we did of Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference, where he talks about how important it is to make the counterpart, the person you're speaking with, feel like you understand them. And so obviously in deals, each side is going to have their own attachments to what is being determined, whether those are personal attachments or business-related attachments, and being able to see it from their perspective, to sort of temporarily step into their shoes, metaphorically speaking, really helps them trust you. And when they trust you and they feel like you are listening and understanding them, they'll be willing to be more transparent and forthcoming about what they need to feel good in the deal. And then that gives you the basis of working toward a mutually beneficial agreement. Lesson number 3 is being brave enough to ask for the crazy deals. So Bob Iger talks about this in regards to acquiring Pixar and having to do the negotiations with Steve Jobs. And he talks about the fact that the idea of asking to acquire Pixar, which at the time was a pretty big competitor to Disney's animation segment, that he thought that that was crazy. And you may relate to this, where things just seem so unlikely, that getting a yes from somebody seems so far outside the realm of possibility. We get so in our heads and we get so worried about being told no, about being rejected, that we don't even bother asking. There is a really popular phrase that you might have heard, that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And that really applies here. So Bob teaches that you may as well ask for it, right? The worst that you can get is a no, but that by having the bravery to make the ask, you actually bring into the realm of possibility that deal or that specific request. Lesson 4 is firing people correctly and with dignity. Now, this is a bit of an interesting point that, if I may interject, I wasn't sure if I wanted to include in this video. It is particularly insightful and kind of a unique perspective on the scenario of needing to let an employee go. Bob Iger talks about there being sort of 3 steps that need to be followed when firing somebody. The first is that he always does it in person, that he wants to give somebody the respect of showing up in person and having that tough conversation face to face. The second thing that he does as he clearly defines what specifically is not working, where there is not a good fit that is leading them to want to lay off that particular individual. And the third step is that he clearly defines why the company believes that problem, that disconnect that he already outlined in the second step, why they don't see it ever getting any better. And what this process does is it shows the employee that leadership respects them. It eliminates any chance of questioning why they've got fired. They have complete certainty of why they got let go. And then it also provides closure by sort of eliminating any conversation of trying to fix it or trying to come back and work there again or anything like that. It sort of provides a clean break and allows both parties to move on. Take those principles and apply them to other difficult conversations, right? If you look at them at their base level and not just through the lens of firing, having tough conversations in person, being very clear about what it is that you're feeling goes a long way, and it makes those tough conversations easier. Lesson number 5 is how to handle mistakes. So it's inevitable that every company, every person will make tons of mistakes throughout their journey. And what Bob Iger talks about is the importance of fixing those mistakes as best you can immediately, as quickly as you can. You obviously cannot change the fact that the mistake itself has been made, but what you can do is pull together all of your effort, all of your resources, and provide the best solution, the best fix to that mistake as quickly as possible. You not only start to clean up the mess that the mistake has made, but you also signal to anybody that the mistake may have affected that you are there to acknowledge what went wrong and to make it right as best as possible. And that actually can buy you a lot more understanding from people, a lot more empathy, patience, and tolerance from people in the process. Lesson number 6 is the importance of being able to compartmentalize as a leader. So as a leader, there are going to be so many different segments of a business, so many different teams and departments and initiatives that are all going on at the same time. And as a leader, you are managing all of them concurrently. Of course, you may have team leads and different members that are more in the weeds, but from an upper level, leaders are responsible for overseeing everything. There are inevitably going to be a ton of fires to be put out. And so what Bob Iger talks about is the importance of being able to acknowledge when fires exist, when there are mistakes that need to be corrected, but not allowing that to completely distract you from the overall goals, right? From the overall objectives that have been laid out for the organization. It's really common when something goes wrong to just completely divert 100% of your focus to that and to be so consumed by it that it's all that you see, it's all that you think about, it's all that you focus on. A leader certainly needs to address fires and mistakes and help take care of them and make sure that the right team members get started on the right implementation of a solution. But to be able to sort of mentally put that aside when other tasks that are more important need to be focused on, and to be able to give the full attention to the ultimate long-term plan rather than getting pulled off course by each little fire that needs to be put out. They ultimately need to keep things afloat. They need to keep leading forward for that organization. Lesson number 7 is the importance and the value of an intrapreneur. So for those who are not familiar with the phrase, intrapreneur is an employee inside an organization that acts in a lot of ways like an entrepreneur. So we're familiar with the term entrepreneur, a business owner that's sort of a strategic problem solver and a creative thinker that drives innovation. An intrapreneur is somebody who does that within the context of working for an organization. And I think it's pretty impressive what Bob Iger has accomplished. It just goes to show that you can make an incredibly valuable impact as an employee. So that's really important to embody that within the role or the position that you have at the company that you work for. You can take the initiative to be creative, to strategize, to bring new ideas to the table, to take on more responsibility, to become a leader within, even if your current title doesn't technically suggest that you are a leader. And in doing so, when you provide a ton of value and you just keep going above and beyond for the company at which you work, you will eventually be rewarded for that. Eventually, they will take note and they will want to keep moving you up and giving you more and more responsibility because they start to trust that you can handle it, that you succeed in those scenarios. The book outlines Bob Iger's rise throughout the organization. I mean, he literally started at the bottom at one of the most entry-level positions, and through a career that has spanned multiple decades, he is now literally at the top. So that concludes our review of Bob Iger's The Ride of a Lifetime. This was a fantastic read. It was really a lot of fun and very cool to go behind the scenes on a lot of these major deals with companies that are very well known. If you have any follow-up questions about any of the lessons that were outlined in this video, or if you have any additional comments, insights, more tips, tricks, or techniques that can benefit other people, please go ahead and post those down in the comments below. That way the entire community of everybody watching can learn from it. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I appreciate your attention, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.